we will discuss the features or attributes of compliance audit. And from our past sessions, you remember that we defined a compliance audit as a systematic and independent examination of an organization's adherence to a specific set of rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and so on. The process of examining or assessing whether an organization is obeying rules is what we are referring to as a compliance audit. And unlike a financial audit that focuses on the accuracy of financial statements, or unlike a governance audit that assesses the overall governance framework, a compliance audit zeroes in on whether an entity is playing by the rules. The auditor, in carrying out a compliance audit, seeks to establish as to whether an entity is playing by the rules. So what is the nature of a compliance audit? What are the features? What are the characteristics? What are the attributes of a compliance audit? The first characteristic is that a compliance audit is rule-based. Okay? That is to mean that it revolves around specific identifiable criteria, which are the applicable laws, regulations, internal policies, contractual agreements, industry standards, code of conduct, and so on. That's why a compliance auditor must be one that understands the legal and regulatory framework thoroughly. So a compliance audit is rule-based. It just focuses on rules, the applicable rules, the regulations, internal policies, contractual agreements, codes of conduct, and so on. That's feature number one. The second feature is legal and regulatory focus. A significant part of a compliance audit involves understanding and assessing the adherence to external legal and regulatory requirements. For example, adherence to tax laws, environmental laws, data protection laws, and labor laws, industry-specific regulations like those for financial services or telecommunications. The focus is on legal and regulatory environment. There is also what we call internal policy focus. Internal policy focus. It also examines compliance with internal policies, procedures, processes, and also controls established by the organization itself. Apart from checking whether an organization is obeying external laws, there is also internal focus, because every organization has policies. And these policies mainly are developed to enable the employees comply with the legal or the external laws and regulations. You understand? These internal rules are often designed to ensure adherence to external requirements and promote operational efficiency. Point number 4, risk mitigation. Compliance audits are inherently linked to risk, because non-compliance can lead to significant legal penalties, fines, reputational damage, operational disruptions, and also financial losses. So the audit aims to identify and mitigate such risks. That's feature number 4. Number 5, period. These audits are conducted periodically, or they may be driven by events. Compliance audits can be conducted regularly, for example, annually for tax compliance audit or data protection audits, or they may be triggered by specific events like complaints. Another event could be enactment of a new legislation which can prompt compliance audit. It could be a suspected violation, and so on. So compliance audits can be conducted periodically, or they may be conducted as a result of an event. The 6th attribute of compliance audit is evidence-based. These audits are based on evidence. Like all audits, compliance audit relies on gathering sufficient and appropriate evidence from documents, from interviews, from evidence from observations, evidence from system checks, in order to support audit findings and conclusions. In order to support audit findings and conclusions. So these are 6 points to illustrate the nature of compliance audits. Let's move to the second part of the lesson, which is the purpose. What is the purpose of compliance audits? Now, the first reason why compliance audits are performed is to show adherence to laws and regulations. To ensure adherence to laws and regulations. The most fundamental purpose is to confirm that the organization is operating within the bounds of all applicable external laws, statutes, and regulatory requirements. And this includes national laws like the Company Act, the Income Tax Act, the Data Protection Act, and sector-specific regulations like the Central Bank of Kenya regulations for banks and international standards, if applicable, to ensure adherence to laws and regulations. The second purpose of compliance audit is to verify compliance with internal policies. To verify compliance with internal controls. To verify internal policies and controls. That's the second purpose. Is to check if internal policies, procedures, and codes of conduct, which are often designed to operationalize external regulations or reflect best practices, are being followed consistently across the organization. That's the second purpose. Moving on to the third point is identify and mitigate risks. To identify and mitigate. To identify and mitigate risks of non-compliance. The purpose of compliance audits is to proactively identify areas where the organization is at risk of non-compliance, and this helps prevent legal penalties, fines, lawsuits, loss of licenses, or even reputational damage. For example, in Kenya, we have the Data Protection Conduct of Compliance Audit Regulations, which highlight the need for organizations to conduct data protection audits to ensure compliance with the Data Protection Act of 2019, specifically to mitigate risks related to personal data handling. So the third purpose is to identify and mitigate risks of non-compliance. Purpose number 4 is to enhance accountability. To enhance accountability. That means to hold individuals and departments accountable for their roles to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness. To improve operational efficiency and effectiveness. Non-compliance often stems from weak processes or controls. And therefore, by identifying compliance gaps, audits can lead to improvements in operational processes and internal controls, making them more robust and efficient. That is point number 5. The sixth purpose of a compliance audit is to maintain reputation. To maintain reputation and stakeholder trust. Because by demonstrating a commitment to compliance through regular audits, that helps build and maintain trust with customers, investors, regulators, and the members of the public. Because non-compliance can lead to severe damage to an organization's reputation. To maintain reputation and stakeholder trust. The seventh purpose of conducting compliance audits is to provide assurance to management and the board. Is to provide assurance to management and the board of directors. All right? Is to provide assurance to the board of directors and senior management that the organization's activities are conducted in a lawful and ethical manner, thereby minimizing legal and operational exposure. That's why compliance audits are conducted. Legal defense. Now, compliance audits candidates can be used in support of legal defense in case of future issues. Because a robust history of compliance audits can serve as evidence of due diligence and good faith efforts to comply, which can be beneficial in case of future legal challenges or regulatory scrutiny. So these are 8 reasons why compliance audits are necessary. So that's the end of the lesson on the nature and purpose of compliance audit. We began by stating that a compliance audit is a systematic and independent examination of an entity's adherence to specific set of rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. And one of the characteristics of a compliance audit is that these audits are rule-based. Number 2, they have a legal and regulatory focus. They have an internal policy focus. There is the aspect of risk mitigation. These audits are conducted periodically or are driven by events. Then lastly, just like any other audit, they are evidence-based. Before an auditor expresses an opinion or establishes whether a company is adhering to rules or procedures, the auditor has to gather evidence through observation, going through records, interviews, and so on. Then lastly, we have discussed the purpose of compliance audits. The first purpose is to ensure adherence to rules and regulations. The second one is to verify compliance with internal policies and controls. Number 3 is to identify and mitigate risks of non-compliance. Number 4 is to enhance accountability. 5 is to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness. Number 6 is to maintain reputation of the company and stakeholder trust. Number 7 is to provide assurance to management and the board of directors that the entity is adhering to rules. Then lastly is to support legal defense. That's all for today's lesson. And I hope to meet you in the next session where we are going to continue discussing matters related to governance and compliance audits. Bye-bye.